Hello and welcome to Pokésports Plus, an extra podcast by Pokésports where we talk with people from all over the Pokemon community. I am Mike and I play with one Pokemon on the field.
I'm Kevin. I play with two Pokemon on the field.
And today we have Steph, otherwise known as StephOfAnime from Twitch or YouTube or Twitter or Instagram or wherever you follow her. Steph, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today.
We're really excited to talk to you because you are... I feel like we're kindred spirits. Like you and I, we have been following the same kind of Pokemon trajectory for the past however many years. And I really want to get into that today. So first off, let's talk about what it is you do. So you're a streamer.
Yeah, so I am a partnered streamer on Twitch. I've been streaming Pokemon and Nintendo variety content for a few years now. I started in 2016 and started streaming more regularly around 2017. And yeah, it's just been a huge part of my life ever since.
Would you consider yourself a variety streamer or a Pokemon streamer? What primarily?
I would say it depends on the season. When a new Pokemon game is out, I'm pretty heavily Pokemon. But right. I do love some Nintendo variety and a few other interactive type games. I'm a huge fan of the Jackbox games as well, like community games that I'm playing with my community, as well as a Persona 5 I've been playing recently. So I would say Nintendo variety as well as Pokemon.
Let's get into that a little bit more. So starting in 2016, what was it that kind of got you there? Why did you start streaming on Twitch?
Ooh, so I would attribute it to 2.5 things. The first thing was actually when Twitch Plays Pokemon came out in 2014. That is actually what introduced me to the platform of Twitch. For, I would say, the next 2 years, I just became obsessed with watching other streamers. So whether they were Pokemon streamers or Minecraft streamers, after Twitch Plays Pokemon blew up and really showed me what the whole live interface was all about, I was just a huge fan of watching people in the moment. I couldn't go back to just with a YouTube video where, you couldn't actually participate in the content that was being put out. So that's kind of what kickstarted me into liking Twitch as a platform. And then, I was watching a few other series and I had actually a friend, he goes by the name Dr. Kendo, who was a full-time YouTuber at the time. And when you have a friend who's really into content, it can kind of inspire you. And so seeing him do content, I was like, you know what? I really like this idea of, playing video games, getting to hang out with friends. And I feel, I've been watching Twitch for so long, let me try it out and see. And so yeah, that's kind of where it all started. I ended up starting with Undertale. I love that game so much, and it was just a fun game to play with friends. And yeah, and then I got my first capture card in January of 2017 for Pokemon, and Pokemon's my favorite game of all time. And so getting to stream that was life-changing. And that once I had the equipment to do that, I just didn't want to do anything else. And so, yeah, that's kind of my little origin story there.
And so when you started playing Pokemon on Twitch, what did that look like? Were you just playing through the game? Were you going into competitive? What happened there?
Oh, yeah. So no, actually 2020, and we'll talk about this a little bit later into the podcast, was actually the very first time I've been really setting foot and diving into VGC. My little mantra for the stream is that Steph's 2020 journey is taking on VGC. And I'm really, really excited to talk about that. But because my whole Pokemon journey on Twitch, I've been shiny hunting, I've been doing Let's Plays, Nuzlocks, randomizers, everything to the moon and back, except for competitive battling and play. I've actually been a closeted VGC fan since 2014. I have been watching all of the regionals. I have been watching all of the world championships. I've been following all of the content creators in the VGC space for a very, very long time. But I was always just too intimidated to go online and battle. I would EV train my Pokemon. I would IV breed. I knew the meta at the time. I just was too scared to actually try it. As soon as I would get, online and click that button to verse somebody, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what decisions to make. And so I just put it aside. I was too scared to kind of put the practice in. And with Gen 8 now being so accessible for VGC, I said, you know what, it's time to conquer that fear. We're going to do it together. Me and my community. I want to show everybody that, if anybody is new to the platform and wants to give it a try, to Pokemon battling, I should say, that's kind of what I thought. And it's been a lot of fun. So that's kind of where I'm at now, how I got started. Yeah.
And I know that somewhere in the middle there, you were into, and I'm like excited saying this, you were into Smogon singles.
So what's So Smogon and singles battling is really interesting. So some of you guys may know this, but a few weeks back, I actually participated in a little singles tournament.
Yes, I saw that.
That was actually my first time doing official singles, believe it or not.
Really?
Didn't you do really well, though?
So I won this tournament.
Yeah, so...
I don't know how, to be honest. I think it's
because
one of those,
you're good.
I think I got really lucky. Plus, you know, when you, like I said, I've been a fan of a lot of content creators and I've been in the Pokemon space for a long time. I think I, you know, through osmosis, got some techniques. But yeah, that was actually my first experience with singles battles myself, actually. And
what did you think?
It was a lot of fun. It was so different from VGC. I feel bad because I feel I didn't look at singles as an option really with battling. Like when I finally wanted to take on battling, I was like, oh, VGC, that's the official, you know, format. That's the one I'm going to look at and learn. And I feel like I kind of neglected singles, and there's some really interesting singles meta and just strategies that you don't see in VGC. And I think that's really cool to explore. It's cool to look at both angles, I think, of battling. For
sure. I mean, Kevin, we were just talking the other day about how Clefable in singles is seeing so much play compared to VGC. It's in like more than half of the usage for March.
I'm pretty sure in VGC, Clefairy has a higher usage than Clefable right now.
I'm pretty sure you're right. Yeah.
Oh, that's great that you had all these EV trained Pokemon kind of sitting on the bench for the longest time, finally getting their time to shine.
Oh, it's so great.
To shine is such a good term for this too.
Oh man,
that's so funny.
Yeah, it was so funny. You know, like that was like the night before that tournament. I was like, I need to go on Reddit and find a team to use. What is singles meta right now? And so shout out to Reddit and everybody who contributes their teams to Reddit, because that's how I found the team that I ended up using to win that tournament. It was a practice tournament.
So
it wasn't
cool.
anything official, but it was with a bunch of content creators and it was really cool.
Do you know who it was who made the team that you ended up using, or was it just like a collective bunch of people on Reddit who made your team?
It was kind of a collective bunch, and then I went to one of my friends and I sent them, you know, the paste of the team saying, what do you think of this? And they were like, this is a little strange, but kind of cool. Change this move. And so it was kind of a bit of a collective effort. I don't remember the original username. I'm sorry, but I just Googled like singles rental team or something. I mean,
sometimes
like
that's really all you need to do. Kevin and I recently have been very low key interested in Little Cup. So we've been looking up specific sets, and the other day actually we were making up a team on Showdown to go up against each other. I think this was just yesterday. And I had put together this team completely from scratch. I just like looked at the Pokemon. I'm like, I like this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. And I went and faced Kevin and I got smashed. I got immediately destroyed.
Oh my gosh.
I'm looking at Kevin's team and I'm like, how did you come up with this? And he's like, I just looked up sets. And I'm like, oh yeah, you can do that.
That's the big brain play.
Yeah, that's a big brain play.
I didn't pretend to know what singles was. I just looked up the Smogon sets and the usage sets.
That's me in a nutshell.
Well, hey, it worked out. You came in first.
I cannot believe it. It was so much fun.
Well, I definitely want to get more into your VGC transition.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you know what? Let's spend the podcast talking about that, because I think that a lot of people who are listening to this podcast right now can really glean a lot from what you are saying about this, because a lot of our listeners are either new to VGC or they're trying to get better. And a good way that someone can try and do that is by listening to what other people are doing to try and get better themselves. So let's talk about Steph's VGC 2020 escapades.
I'm so excited. And this is what it's all about. And this is what I also love about what you guys are doing is, you know, in combination with just the community and Sword and Shield's game mechanics that have made it so much easier to get into competitive battling just from so many different standpoints. I just love that, you know, we just have so much more accessibility to get into. And I think just having more resources for more people it's just all you need really to kind of push those boundaries and get more people involved. And I think, you know, it's really amazing just what Sword and Shield has done for competitive, just from, you know, the natures. Like you can change things like the natures, you can give all your Pokemon vitamins, so much that, you know, it used to take so long to get legitimate Pokemon, you know, for competitive, that so many people who would be so qualified to battle just don't have the time between work or school or whatever you're doing. And so that's been huge for getting into competitive Pokemon. And I would say the biggest thing that's helped me on my journey has honestly been just watching other people who have been doing it for a really long time. That has been so huge, to be able to watch matches and to just practice and get a rental team right away and just dive right into what the current meta is. It's been so incredibly helpful. For sure.
And so some of the people that you've been watching for a while, who would they be?
So Aaron Zhang, I've been watching Aaron Zhang for a really, really long time. He's an amazing content creator. I've been watching, of course, Wolfie, as well as Alex Agloza has been doing a lot of stuff on Twitch. He used to post a ton on YouTube. He's actually, I think, the first VGC player I ever saw videos of. So I got to give a shout out to him. There's been also A-Drive has been taking some steps into VGC as well. You know, A-Drive is typically known for shiny hunting and other sorts of Pokemon content, but him diving into VGC has been a huge inspiration, I think, as well, especially for his audience. And so those have been some of the top people I've been watching. Of course, actually, there's some more. Gabby and Rosemary, who you guys had on the podcast, I've been watching as well. And they're all fantastic people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll get a little bit more into A-Drive specifically and the Champions Cup, Wolfie, that you mentioned as well, because I do know that you did compete in the Champions Cup. How did you place again?
I went 5-4.
There you go.
I'm so proud of myself for that. That was my first ever tournament. That was VGC
that was your
officially.
First VGC
Not
tournament.
counting. I did. So I live in Toronto, but before that, I did live in Jersey. And so in 2010, I did go to the regionals. That was in Secaucus, I think. But I just want you guys to imagine a Steph that didn't know what Eevee and Ivy, breeding was, who went with her in-game team and did one battle and then went home.
Nice.
So that doesn't really count as, competing. This was my first tournament where I prepared in advance. I really thought methodically about what my team was going to be. And, I did the whole 9 yards. And so I'm really excited to just be in the positives. I was to the moon and back.
And so to get to the point where you put together a VGC team and actually competed with it, what went into creating your team? Did you have that ready? Did you, make that up on online first? Or how did you go about team building?
So I love the advice that a lot of the pro players will typically give, which is when you're first starting out, it is a lot more helpful to use a rental team before you kind of build your own from scratch. And so what I did is I was trying out a whole bunch of different rental teams. There's a ton of videos on YouTube where people just share the teams and, why they built the team that they did the way that they do and different things like that. And, after using a few, I was like, okay, here are the Pokemon that are my favorite to use from this rental team. Like Conkeldurr. I had so much fun using Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr will rock Tyranitar's world and Excadrill's world. And so I was like, I want a Conkeldurr on my team. And so that was kind of one of my starting points where I was like, which Pokemon do I really like? And then, what can kind of go around that? And so for me, taking a rental team and then modifying it to be how I want to play it was the way that it worked best for me. And this also just takes off the pressure, right, of building completely from scratch, having to know exactly which, EVs you want to put into it or, different things like that. Like I know the Conkeldurr I ended up using was one that was circulating around Twitter with spreads to survive like a max airstream from a Charizard. And I am not experienced enough with the calculations to really do that sort of stuff yet, but the people who have been sharing their resources, I was taking from, different spreads people were publicly putting, and different moves from different rental teams and kind of made a little conglomeration, I guess you could say.
I would say that for the people who are trying to get into VGC or trying to understand a little bit more about damage specifically, One, there are a lot of different ways that people go about it, and what Steph's saying is completely true. You don't know what kind of numbers go into this game unless you really look deep, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So if you want to just figure out a way to feel it out, I feel like a great way is just to understand the damage calculation formula. Now, this is something that I don't really hear too many people talking about, but it is definitely something that people should look at. There are a good short list of 10 to 15 things that go into damage calculations. And we've talked about this on the podcast. If you know your typings and your if a move is a spread move or not, if it has a chance to miss, what the damage range is, just knowing all of these things, you can pretty much look at a Pokemon and be like, this is probably going to live it. And then at that point, you go online, you look and you see that there's a Conkeldurr that can live a max airstream from a Charizard, and you look at what is built into that for that to happen. You're like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see that.
That's got to be a beefy Conkeldurr to
Oh, for sure.
It was when it was Dynamaxed, but yes.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm like, wow. Okay.
Otherwise, there's no way it would live. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's so true. That's something just in general. What I love so much about the idea of competitive Pokemon is such a widely accessible game for people of all ages and of all skill sets. You can play Pokemon without needing to competitively battle. You can have your fun in game with your party Pokemon and, not really think too much further. But if you are somebody who loves methodical type of gameplay and strategy, there's this whole world in Pokemon that exists in VGC battling. Just everything that goes into VGC
Absolutely.
is so complex, and you wouldn't see that from the outset. I feel a lot of people who don't know much about competitive Pokemon wouldn't expect it to be as deep as it is, especially with some of the new mechanics. For example, with Tailwind now taking effect right away versus in previous generations it didn't. And this is something so niche that makes such a huge difference
100%.
to the game. It's so cool. And so that's something I just love about Pokemon. And I think that's the reason I'm so interested in competitive is you could be like me, a fan for so many years, your entire life essentially. And there's still so much to learn and to get into. And the format changes every year on top of that, right? So you're always learning, it's just incredible.
I love what you said about being accessible to all ages. Because I think Pokemon is one of the only emerging esports that puts children on the same pedestal as the adults who are playing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You watch an international stream and you'll see Simone Lim going up against Justin, I forgot his last name, and having this epic battle between 4 Pokemon, and people are like talking about it the same way that they talk about the finals of the Masters division.
Right. And I love that post went viral because, oh man, her face is just the most wholesome thing in the entire world.
So
but
wholesome.
I agree with what you're saying. That's a really interesting point, actually. It's really interesting, especially as esports continues to grow. I think there is that difference, with Pokemon and other games. That's really fascinating.
And one of the other interesting things that I've been finding about esports specifically is that in those competitive scenes where you have teams and people being sponsored by teams to go and practice and go and play, you're now seeing that in Pokemon. And this is something that you've been seeing in Overwatch or Hearthstone or CSGO or any of those other popular esports for years now. But now you're finally seeing people like Eduardo Cunha being sponsored by Team Spino. You've got Aaron Zhang and Wolfie, yeah, exactly, being sponsored by Panda Gaming. You're finally starting to see that in Pokemon. It's like it's finally being recognized, and it's so nice to be like sitting there after 20 years and being like, yeah, wow, okay, finally.
I'm really excited. I'm hoping that the fact that they've given so much more special attention to competitive Pokemon just means more things in the future, more opportunities in the esports sphere. It'll be awesome.
We're going to continue talking about that after we come back from a short break. So stick around and we will have more to talk about with Steph. See you in a bit. And we are back with our conversation with StephOfAnime. Steph, tell us a little bit about what the life of a streamer is. You're a partnered streamer on Twitch. You have a schedule that you follow. What is that like?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. First of all, I guess I should say I feel incredibly privileged to be in the position that I am. I just graduated university.
Congratulations.
As of this podcast coming out. I'm so excited. And so streaming has been amazing because not only is it just a passion of mine to share, my love of video games with other people, but it's been a source of income for me just while I've been finishing up school, and being able to kind of formulate my own schedule and kind of make that work has been just, I'm so grateful, and it's helped me realize just so many passions that I didn't even realize I had just in the entertainment sphere of the skills you gain being a streamer that, that go beyond just playing a video game, getting to interact with an audience, getting to understand how social media trends work, different things like that. I didn't even know I was interested in until I started streaming. But I guess on a basic level, I love interaction. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. And so getting to lead a community is the biggest thing that I do as a streamer. I'm a very interactive streamer. I'm all about involving my community and really facilitating a safe environment for people to talk about their passions. I'm StephOfAnime because I want people to know, hey, I really like anime, and if you like that, or if you have something you're really passionate about, know that you can talk to me about it, and there's no judgment. We can just all have a really good time, and right. I know especially growing up, not everybody has a really supportive environment around them. And I wanted to provide, using Twitch as a platform, that space for people. And so, different streamers do different things. Some streamers are just hilarious and funny and just want to, share their video game experience with other people. But for me, community is really at the forefront of everything that I do on Twitch. And so that's my inspiration. That's the reason why I stream 5 days a week, every single, as much as I can, almost every single day.
Right.
Yeah, so for me, it's really just about engaging with people, often on stream. I'm on Discord when I'm not streaming, and just kind of planning different events whenever I can, really. So that's kind of what it looks like for me on a pretty general basis. And I'm also just a goofball, and I play games in a very strange way, but we make it work.
If someone from the podcast were to go visit your Twitch channel, what games would they see right now?
Lots of Pokemon, of course, ranging from now VGC content to, I like doing a lot of the max raids as well, raid battles. I used to do a lot of shiny hunting, but not so much anymore for no other reason than just VGC has just been my interest right now. Right. And so it's kind of captured everything. A lot of Animal Crossing. Oh my gosh, Animal Crossing has taken over the entire world. I love Animal Crossing. It's my first Animal Crossing experience, and New Horizons has opened my horizons to how great Animal Crossing is. As well as just Persona 5.
That was scripted, right?
What?
That sounded scripted.
I just take any opportunity I can to make really cheesy, cringy sales pitches. I've never worked in sales, but I feel like Nintendo should hire me.
Right? You listening, Nintendo?
Oh man, please hire me. Thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, Persona, because Persona 5 Royal has just come out, so I'm trying to finish the original so that I can play Persona 5 as well. Those, I would say, are the top 3 things you can find me doing right now.
With all of the time that you spend on Twitch and on Discord and interacting with your audience, is there ever any kind of burnout to doing something like that?
There is from time to time. I would say the most important thing when you're streaming either full time or you're just spending a lot of your time streaming is taking preventative measures. So, for example, even though I do stream 5 days a week, I typically stream for around 4 hours as opposed to 8 to 10 hours every single day. And I do that not because I can't go. I mean, just yesterday I did a 7-hour Animal Crossing stream, so it depends on my mood. But most of the time I do limit my stream times to prevent burnout, right? And so this goes to really scheduling my day. Time management is super important. I think especially when you're doing, and when you have your own business for anything, right? If you can consider streaming a business, just making sure you're on top of everything. And for me, I take a lot of preventative measures so that I don't burn myself out. And when it does happen, I take the day off. And so I would say while I do experience it right now, I'm not feeling much burnout. In fact, I'm just really excited for all of the new games coming out, especially with the state the world's in right now. It's been a little tough to focus on the things around us. And I think something amazing that Twitch has been doing during a time like this has been really I guess, bring people together in a time where people can't be brought together in other ways, you know? So I don't feel burnout with Twitch. It's more so other aspects of life that are stressful. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's great that like your job now essentially has become something that gives you energy and something that, you know, keeps you going.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely times, and you know, we're also living in a period right now where Sword and Shield is out, right? And if you were to ask me back when Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out, my answer would be a little bit different. And that's just because I don't share the passion that I have, you know, for Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee that I do with Sword and Shield. With Sword and Shield now, I have my fondness for getting into VGC attached to this game. And so that's really special for me versus, you know, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. If you were to have interviewed me then, you know, there was definitely a little bit more burnout. And then I could talk about all the ways I dealt with that and, you know, in other ways. So, yeah.
Well, there you go.
Let's Go Pikachu really and Eevee it was just pretty much a shiny hunting game for you, right?
I have a confession to make.
Oh,
yeah.
This is going to shock all the viewers at home listening. I never fully finished Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I have hundreds of hours in it from shiny hunting. I could not will myself to finish the Let's Play on stream. Like, it's a beautiful game, and I don't hate it. You couldn't ask me to pick a least favorite Pokemon game because I love Pokemon. But in terms of like what I wanted to do on stream, I just never wanted to go through like the trainer battles and the gym battles. I was just like, oh yeah, I'll go around and shiny hunt and do this. And beautiful. Like, I love looking at the aesthetic of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But oh gosh, I could not. I could not really get into it. So
I mean, that's the thing with it being the first Switch game for Pokemon. It was like, oh, that's really nice. That looks beautiful, and it's on this console that is accessible and versatile, and you know, just a beautiful experience. Except it just wasn't as let's say competitive of a game or good.
And I would also just say it was our third time now going through Kanto. I love my Gen 1 just as much as the next person, but it is like a third remake of Gen 1, right? And I think that even if it had been, I am curious if Let's Go was a Gen 2 game, you know, or a game where it's actually been not as remade. I mean, Gen 2's also been remade, but you know, a game that hasn't been remade so many times or referenced so many times, if it would have changed my experience, because even though I get to see these really beautiful scenes in a different light, I still know what's going to happen at the end of the day, you know? And I think for me that kind of matters. So
it's like you're spoiled before the game even starts.
Yeah.
I do think it's great to get people back in. And I know just like what Pokemon Go did for a lot of people, as I think Let's Go was great to get a lot of more casual gamers or gamers who do more variety content to look back at Pokemon and say, oh, I miss this. And, you know, reintroduce them into the franchise. So I think Let's Go has a really great place on the Switch. And I think it was great to test the limits of what you could do with Pokemon on the Switch before they, you know, released Sword and Shield. But as somebody who is, you know, who's been in the community for a long time and would kind of classify herself as a bit of a hardcore Pokemon player, and that I just spend so much time on it, it's not targeting me as the main demographic.
Right. And it had an audience for sure. And there were a lot of people who did play it and did enjoy it. And, you know, we're fine with it. But I think for us in the competitive space and us who grew up with it and us who wanted to see it evolve, so to speak, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon did a good job at that. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee kind of went down a bit, and then when Sword and Shield came out, I think if Let's Go wasn't what it was, Sword and Shield wouldn't be what it is, because people were very vocal about what they wanted after Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee.
Right.
And then Sword and Shield comes out and it's like, all right, well, you know what? Let's give you an easier way to change natures. Let's give you an easier way to change IVs. You'll know what they are now. So here, bottle caps. Well, although they were there before anyway, but I digress. It's a great competitive game. It's the best one that we've seen so far. Great way to kind of jump into it.
DLC coming around the corner too.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited. Oh man. I feel like we're gonna need like a 3-hour podcast another time just to talk about. There's so much we could talk about with Pokemon between even just from a competitive standpoint. What Pokemon are gonna make it into the DLC? How is that gonna change the meta? But then also my casual side is just excited for more content. Hello?
Yeah, right.
I'm excited.
Are you aware of some of the new Pokemon coming back?
You'll probably have to remind me because I probably did yesterday and forgot today.
Oh, no worries. I will be happy to do that. Confirmed Pokemon.
I think Garchomp's coming in, right? I'm excited for that.
Oh, yeah.
I want Garchomp on my team. I tried to put a Flygon on a competitive team, and Flygon's really cool, but Garchomp's better.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even crazier is a lot of these new Pokemon that are coming in are all going to have different moves that they didn't have previously. Like, I think Garchomp gets close combat now.
I heard it's going to get Dragon Dance. Can you imagine?
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Can you imagine? Oh, people are quaking at home.
we're getting Talonflame back. We're getting Kingdra back.
Talonflame's coming back?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, snap. Oh, that's hype.
Oh, that's hype. We're getting
That's
Nidoking
hype.
back.
Oh, nice.
Oh, Metagross is coming back. We need to talk about Metagross.
Oh, Metagross is official? Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that official?
Yeah.
That's
That
coming
was
in,
that was
Crown
one
Tundra.
that we talked with Aaron Zhang about that one. That's one that he has his eyes on a lot. Weakness policy,
Ooh.
Dynamax Metagross is gonna be
Snap.
it's gonna be kind of gross.
Wow.
Ha, I see what
Nope.
you did there.
Hey, I could do it too.
See, it's not too bad to do on the fly.
Mike, you're next.
There's a chancey that we're gonna see a Dynamax Blissey.
Oh, jeez.
I live for
There
this.
you go.
That's like 1400 HP at Dynamax.
Yeah.
Oh my
Level
god.
100.
Dynamax Blissey is going to be my life. I'm gonna love that so much.
Oh man. And we think Rhyperior is bad now.
Yeah. Honestly, you haven't seen anything yet. I'm just so excited for the change in meta that the Crown Tundra and Isle of Armor are gonna bring.
Absolutely.
I can't
oh my
wait to
goodness.
see Magnezone come back and just
Oh,
do Magnezone things.
You know, every single legend too coming in Crown
Yeah,
Tundra.
that's right.
New Reggies.
Yeah.
Bunch of fun stuff.
Oh yeah, all the Galarian legends look sick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the Kanto birds.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of using, I guess the word is off meta Pokemon in current meta teams. So most recently, I don't know if you've seen this, I've started to use a Noctowl on my team.
Whoa.
I love it. You pair that with a G-Max Orbeetle. A G-Max Orbeetle has G-Max Gravitas, which puts gravity down on the field. When gravity's down on the field, it does couple things. But most important for me is 1, it makes Hypnosis always hit. And 2, it brings all flying types down to the ground. So
That's disgusting.
it's disgusting. Most recently, I have had a lot of luck facing Corviknights because I've been able to set gravity, switch out into a Gastrodon, and use Earth Power and destroy.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that thing has no special defense either.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's just to take down Corviknights because it's a lot of the special attacks that would take down Corviknight are just things that it's not weak to. I mean, minus
Yeah, you need a fire move
exactly.
or an electric move.
But you need like a
only
flamethrower, and what are you going to bring a special Arcanine? Not a lot of good Pokemon with flamethrower out there right now.
We talked about the Conkeldurr. What else did your team have, Steph, that you brought?
Oh, I can give you guys a bit of a team breakdown.
Give me
It was
the rundown.
actually,
Let's do it.
In a way, it was kind of unconventional. So the other big part of that team that I really wanted, so I wanted a G-Max Lapras team. And so
Yes.
right now we've been seeing a lot of crazy stuff with G-Max Lapras getting, Perish Song. Mine did not. I actually ran a Life Dew Lapras.
Oh, cool.
So I ran, I had a G-Max Lapras. I brought Incineroar. I put Duraludon on the team, which I think a lot of people looked at my team and they were like, what? Like, why is Duraludon on this team? Just with everything else that's around it. I put Goodra on the team. I wanted to give Goodra some love.
Oh, okay.
So, how many did I just name?
Goodra's pretty good.
Did
I
I
think you
do
got
all thing?
4 there.
Plus Conkeldurr so far.
Conkeldurr, so 5.
Yeah, Keldor. Who's the last one I'm forgetting? So
That's
are
the
they-
one you always leave on the bench.
Gastrodon, yeah.
Gastrodon. So I got Gastrodon on the team. So yeah, and this team is really special to my heart. I know a big thing with practicing and refining your skills in battling is using other teams. But since this was one of the first ones, it was me and my stream chat. We were kind of brainstorming together, so I got a lot of help from chat. But it was like the first one where we sat together and we thought about it, and so it wasn't like a team that, I completely rented, for example, whereas to get to, to climb the ladder for the first time, I was using a rental team, like for, until this point, every time I got to master rank, I used a rental team to do it.
Right.
And so this was my first team where I'm like, oh, this is like my baby. It's like the first team like I made, like with chat, of course. Like my chat definitely, without their knowledge, it would have been a mess. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And just, I don't know if we want to jump into talking about the Champions Cup, but just getting to use that team just for that tournament was so special and so exciting. And I realized a lot of flaws that my team had during that tournament, but it was still such a blast. And yeah, all the games were very intense. I think all my losses went to game 3. So I was just really proud of myself for being able to, do my best and really, not die too much under the pressure,
How did
put up a fight?
How did that feel during the Champions Cup? So in the Champions Cup, you had to go through, what was it, 9 best of 3s in a single day. So you're playing 27 games potentially? You're saying all of them went to game 3. You are playing 27 games of Pokemon
I think I only had 2 games that went to game that were 2 games or so. Like most of them went to game 3.
Right.
Yeah. The biggest thing I think I learned about participating in a tournament is that it is a stamina game. You really need to prepare mentally for the experience, because regardless of your skill level with Pokemon, just to be 8 hours playing games is very intense. And I live streamed most of my games, but even just the first 2 I didn't, which, fun fact, I was terrified. My first game was a bye, so I got a little lucky there. But I didn't, first of all, I didn't know what that was until someone had to tell me what that was. And then second of all, can you imagine my first game? I'm like, am I doing this right? Did I register correctly? Is everything fine? And my opponent just didn't show up. But yeah, going back to it, it's a stamina game. And I think going forward, I need to remember that meal prep is really important. I didn't really prepare my lunches and dinners. Like, that's something that I feel people don't really talk about, but I ate very poorly that day. And, I'm going back to when we were talking about like burnout, preventative measures are really important to me. How do I prevent myself from falling into really bad habits? How do I make sure I'm taking care of my mental health? And, I had so much fun during the tournament. I didn't want to take my eyes off of Discord and, the games that I was playing. Right. But I think making sure that I meal prep, and this I think can apply whether you're going to a tournament or you're doing one online, making sure do I have enough water near me, especially if I'm not ready to get up? Am I planning make sure I go stretch, every so often? And so I think that really taught me, because I was feeling extremely exhausted by the end of it, and I was a little disappointed that I didn't take care of myself, during that tournament. Like, I was eating cookies all day. Don't do that. Don't be like Steph and eat cookies all day because you're too nervous, stressed to go make food. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that is something that I feel like I learned that would be really helpful for other people to know. But don't get me wrong, it was an absolute blast. I had so much fun. It was totally a different environment for my chat because, like I was talking about earlier, I'm very interactive, but I had a delay on my stream and I didn't talk to anyone until it was in between matches. So it was also just a very different vibe for me in general. And I really wanted to give it my all. So you got to see gamer face Steph for the very first time. And it was great though. And so I learned a lot during that tournament, and I really applaud the people who are competing regularly, because I do think you have to build up, stamina to make it through 8 hours. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's actually a very good point that you had there. Like, you put yourself in that tournament setting, for actual in-person tournaments. There's 600 people in a room, and the second that game starts, you can hear a pin drop. Everyone's just focused and staring at their screen.
Yeah, that's something as a streamer I was a little anxious about at first, actually, just because I like to, I guess, be aware of how I look when I'm streaming, and so I get a little insecure about the whole gamer face if I'm not sitting there and talking or being entertaining or whatnot. And so I really had to push that aside to be nope, if I try and talk to chat while I battle, I know I'm going to perform worse because I'll be focusing on commentary. I'll be focusing on, am I being silly? What I'm playing, different things like that. So yeah, it was really cool to have that experience. And I also just got a lot of support. And so that made me feel really good, is that people, even though I was really gamer face, they were into it. And that made me really happy.
it was a very unique opportunity to really see somebody who usually, performs and entertains. It's a different setting to see them sit there and focused on something. And that's a completely like, it's good. It's fun to see. I like watching people that, you know, that's the whole reason why late night shows do so well and why podcasts do so well is that, you know, these people who are actors or podcast personalities or Twitch streamers or competitors who have game faces all the time, you get to see them in a different setting.
It's so cool. And that's another thing I'm really passionate about is just talking about different platforms, like inherent affordances and limitations. This is me being a bit of a nerd over here because I've written research papers about this, but I love that. And that's why I think it's so cool to be able to talk about Pokemon on different platforms and just to showcase Pokemon on different platforms because each platform does something different and can do it in a better way than others. And so that's super cool. I'm nerding out, but I agree. I think that's such a cool point to bring up.
This is the place to nerd out.
I love nerding out. Oh my gosh, it's so fun.
I want to stay on competing for a little bit longer. So you spent your 5 games playing whenever you would have your 4 losses, one of your 4 losses. How did you deal with continuing on in the tournament?
So, I would love to talk about this. I don't get tilted.
Nice.
And the reason why is because I went into that tournament genuinely thinking I was going to go like 0 wins, 9 losses. And to me, I was like, I am not going to win this tournament. I am going to give myself experience that I would not have otherwise, especially this year. We all know that, you know, a lot of the in-person tournaments got canceled. And so the only way to get experience and to practice is to do online tournaments and to really give it your best shot. And I really just went in being like, I want the experience. I want the experience of what it's like to be in a tournament. And if I'm having fun, then I'm winning. You know, it's really cheesy, but that is just how I live my life. I'm an optimist. And for me, like the experience and just saying, hey, am I having fun doing this? Then I'm cool. And sure, RNG, you know, it has its moments. And there were definitely moments where I'd be like, no, wait, that's horrible. But in terms of like losing a game, I was just really proud of myself anytime I won a game, you know, but if I lost a game, I was like, hey, I still got something out of it, you know, and that is like learning experience. And, you know, how did I play this? Did I play this? You know, did I do the best that I could with my team matchup? Or, you know, can I go back later and really, you know, learn from that? So, yeah, I also just have no shame and I'm just all about having fun and being goofy, you know, like I probably could further refine my team just in general to, you know, be a little bit better against some of the current meta, but I was like, I want a Goodra because Goodra is one of my favorite Pokemon outside of Glaceon, you know? I was just like, I want Goodra, you know? So I just kind of, I love competing, but I also don't take myself too seriously at this stage when I'm still learning because I don't want to be too hard on myself, you know?
Right. I think that's a good mindset to have for anybody who's trying to come in and, you know, really try and learn the space and get experience playing. And it's exactly like you said, if you want to become better in tournaments, in a tournament setting, then you have to just participate in tournaments. But you can't expect to go in and destroy everybody and win the entire thing, come walking out with like smoke and explosions behind you with a big champion's belt. You have to, you know, not take yourself too seriously, but also take the situation seriously. Know what it is that you're going into and do your research. And it looks like you've done that. I would say that you did very well. I mean, for your first tournament, this is
I'm
fantastic.
So excited. I felt so good. But it's so true. And I think just for me, one of the weaknesses I have is if I feel too much pressure on myself, then it starts to not become fun for me. That's just the type of person I am. Some people thrive like on like that pressure of, you know, like, oh man, like I got to make sure like if I do poorly, it's the end of the world. Like people like thrive off that. For me, that's not my favorite type of environment. For me, I like to be really motivated to do something because of just how fun it's going to be or just what I'm going to get out of it. And so I've really had to train myself, especially, like I said, I was always really scared to try VGC because I was scared, like, are people going to judge me that I don't know how these type matchups work? You know, in this 1 minute of team preview, I don't know what I'm doing when I'm looking at that. I'm like, who do I bring? Should I bring this Pokemon? Should I not bring this Pokemon? And I'm learning through practice, right? That's how you have to learn. But I couldn't do that first step until I let go of, you know, the whole, like, it's okay that I'm going to be silly and make mistakes, and I should embrace that. And then this way I'm having fun and I'll get better just with experience, because practice is the number one thing outside of however much research you do. Like I said, right, I've been watching VGC since 2014.
Right.
But that doesn't translate. The experience does not translate. There are some that does. There's some things that do, but I guess the ability for you to make those quick decisions. I time out so much. I take forever to make my decisions when I play games. And you'll see if you watch my VODs, I'm always to like the last 3 seconds to make a move. It's not stalling on purpose. Like, you can see, I just don't know what I want to do. Like, I'm like, what do I you know, I don't have that like inherent,
there's genuine thought.
Yeah, I'm thinking of 20 different things that I could do at once. So yeah, just by, you know, going in, getting that practice in, that is what's going to do better for you than, you know, anything else, you know, like, so you really have to put that in the forefront, is what's going to get me to actually battle and play the games, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting in and playing the games, I think, is the biggest deterrent for a lot of people.
It's scary. It's terrifying. And that's why a big thing with me streaming my experiences is I want people to know it doesn't have to be scary, or even if it is scary, you have people around you who are very nice. And the VGC community is so sweet and helpful. And that's been really nice. You know,
they've all done it before.
Yeah.
They've all been there, so they understand what you're going through too. And something to consider in terms of wins and losses, like, you learn a lot more from losses than you do from wins.
Mm-hmm.
So if you lose, like, you should never feel bad about it. I mean, losses, they're not fun, but always just try to take something out of it, because wins are nice, but if you win, you're just like, oh, okay, I don't need help. I'm amazing. Lose, you're just like, oh, okay, maybe I could have done this better.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's also really interesting, you know, where I'm at in my VGC journey. I think this is an important mindset to have. I do think, you know, as you continue to compete and your goals change with why you're competing and what you're aiming for, you know, and dealing with losses and, you know, how you go about it, I think is a little bit different, because I'm thinking about it now, and I'm sure for people who top cut worlds every year, it's a totally different experience for them than it is for me, right? Because for me, I'm trying to get over these barriers to entry versus, you know, top players, they're dealing with some other, you know, emotions and other things going on. So it really depends on where you are in the journey. But for me, where I'm at, that's kind of the mentality that I have. You're
absolutely right. Yeah. Dealing with, talking with people who are learning how to play, and talking with people who are, you know, kind of in the grind of it all. And then talking with people who are on the top. It's such a different, it really is a learning curve. Like, there's nothing more to be said than it's just a super strange learning curve. And it exists in all kinds of esports as well. Ladder anxiety is very real. It's very hard to go and climb the ranks inside any given game. So to be the kind of person who it's effortless for, and who knows the game enough to get themselves there, the mindset, I feel anyway, changes to how can I make very subtle changes in order to you know, eke out a win.
I just love that just through Pokemon, you can see so many different perspectives. It's really fresh, you know, just to get to learn about so many different types of people and play styles. And I'm so excited that VGC is just getting more attention in general, just from people. It makes me so happy.
What would you say? Cool. What would you say your play style is?
Play style competitively, or play style in general with Pokemon? What are we talking?
Let's talk competitive. When you were playing that team, your Kinkeldr and Gastron and all those, what would you say? How did you play that?
I have a bit of a meme answer for you, but only because it's very honest. So in my community, we have something called the Stepho way. Okay. And this essentially just means I follow my heart. You know, in Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's like, believe in the heart of the cards. I kid you not. That's kind of how I like to play. And I just go with my gut. And so my gut will be like, oh, this was I'll tell you a quick story. This clip exists on Twitter. Okay. So somebody tried to pull like the eject buttons switcheroo strat. If you guys don't know what that is, essentially what somebody does is they give your Pokemon that they think is going to Dynamax an eject button, which I had a Gmax Lapras. So most of the time, normal people Gmax their Lapras, okay? And so this person in this battle gives my Lapras this eject button and then, hit the quick attack so, the Lapras switches out. Except I didn't Gmax the Lapras.
Hey, there you go.
I Gmaxed my partner Pokemon that was a Duraludon because I just felt it. I was like, I've been Gmaxing Lapras all night tonight on stream. Let's Dynamax Duraludon instead. And so it was amazing because they rage quit because then I one-shot their Pokemon with Duraludon because I forget it was like a Sylveon that quick attacked, right? So like Sylveon was gone. And so I wiped half their team because they tried to pull this strat and it failed. That's the problem with gimmicks, am I right?
Right, yep.
But going back to with the Champions Cup and my play style, I just do whatever because I know that I don't have the inherent knowledge yet of years of play. So I'm like, what's going to make me feel happy right now?
That poor guy had all the cogs turning.
Oh, man. After
he
this
predicted that whole
podcast,
turn.
I got to find that clip for you guys
I need
because
to
it is
see
the
it.
funniest thing in the whole world.
Oh, man, that's so funny.
I can only imagine his face when it's like, yeah, Lapras is definitely going to G-Max here. It's not Lapras.
Switch
He
goes
lost
in the
to
trash.
away.
It's always fun when you can outpredict, or not even outpredict, but like when you can just have fun with it and then fun things happen or just materialize a win. I know there are some times where like I just wish hard enough for a crit and then it happens, or you wish hard enough for a paralysis or a burn and there it is.
Oh, you want to get me started on that? I'm Elsa. There's so many times I'll be like, freeze! And I freeze their Dynamax Pokemon. People will hate me. Probably the reason why I got so far in my VGC journey is because Hacks is real. Hacks is so... Although, don't get me wrong, I've lost because of Draco Meteor missing, and then that always sucks. But I have so much fun when Pokemon get frozen. Ice types are my favorite, and so... when I get freezes, it's destiny. It's great.
It's destiny.
Yeah.
Last thing before we head off, we all live in a very similar time right now where we're all more or less being forced to stay home or being advised to stay home. It's the smart thing to do. For a lot of people on teams specifically, this means that their earnings are cut, their numbers are down, and players are forced to exclusively play from home. And so to combat this, teams, and I'm going to bring this back to what you're doing. So it sounds like I'm going off on a tangent, but I promise you I'm not. Teams, they're starting to focus a lot more on streaming and entertainment as well as competing. And so it's interesting to me that now it seems like there are also a lot of people who are streaming who are also going into competitive. So people from competitive going in streaming, people streaming going into competitive. Do you think that this is a good thing for communities? Do you like what are your thoughts on what's happening right now?
This is a great question, and I also think there's like even just broader repercussions we can talk about.
Yeah.
I personally love it because I feel that people are now being given the opportunity to experiment with platforms and things that they wouldn't have otherwise because of time restrictions. And I think that's going to breed more innovation in all the communities. You even have celebrities, right, who are going on Twitch now doing singing performances.
Yes.
You have people on YouTube trying to be YouTubers for the first time. You have, like you said, competitors who are trying to stream and streamers who are trying to compete, like me even, for example. And I think it's great. Sure, there's more competition if you want to say that, but I think that what you gain out of more people being on the platform is so much greater. And I love having more faces, around. And I think that it's really cool that there is a silver lining and that, even though it's a little bit stressful and scary right now in the world, that, we're able to adapt and, still come up with really creative and innovative things. And so I'm actually all for it. I think it's really cool. And yeah.
Kevin, what do you think about that?
I think, more fish in the pond, the better.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I agree with you both. It's.
Do you have some worries about what's going on, like more people jumping on board and stuff like that?
In terms of our content, I think our content kind of has its own niche. So I'm not too worried about people in terms of, taking away our viewers. I think our viewers are like super dedicated and super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like right now, as you say, there's more people who want to consume than there are people who want to create. I think more creators just spawns more consumers. So it's such a weird kind of ecosystem online where the supply demand curve is different than your typical like event spaces. That I guess is the closest comparison I can make. But drumming up interest for in our case Pokemon is never a bad thing. If more people want to start playing Pokemon, if A-Drive wants to create massive tournaments with another very popular Pokemon YouTuber and completely sell out entire tournaments, get people watching and get people paid, I think that does nothing but benefit the community.
It brings us back to like the grassroots as to like why we created this podcast was to grow competitive Pokemon. And to grow competitive Pokemon, the content creators have a huge role in that.
Oh yeah.
So more content creators just inevitably helps us reach that goal.
I think I'm a little biased here because I am a content creator, but I think something that I've really enjoyed is a lot of people have come to really respect, I guess, the people who are working in a digital age and who are already equipped to do so.
Yes.
You know, you have a lot of people, and there's a lot of businesses and industries that are not equipped to be online right now. And you even have schools, you have so many industries right now who are just not prepared to tackle stuff like this. And when they're now doing it, they're realizing just how much it does have to go, like how much preparation does go into, you know, any sort of online activity, online business, whatever it is. And so just as somebody who is in the internet space, that's been really nice that people can really like appreciate what you're doing. And so I think that's been nice.
Do you see in the future any kind of opportunity being on with any kind of team as part of the entertainment side of things and also the competitive side of things? I'm talking like organizations. So for Wolfie, for
right. Okay. So you're talking like your Panda Globals and things like that. That's really interesting. I guess it really depends on the team's goals there. You know, I haven't looked into it too much personally, but I think that's because I never figured that I would classify under being qualified for, you know, one of those teams. But going forward and just the way things are going with more people getting more involved, I would not be opposed to it, but I think that comes down to how are the organizations going to be advertising, you know, like who they're looking for and what are their goals with the creators that they're bringing on board. And so as somebody who's not running my own team, that really matters to me is what are their goals and do I fit within their sphere, right? And so I don't know if I can give like a really good answer on that, but that's kind of where my head is at.
I personally think that a lot of what teams are going to start doing, organizations like Panda Global or what have you are going to start doing, is they're going to look at these online competitions and see who's performing really well and see who's entertaining during that time and really start to try and bring them on board. Like you can definitely start to see that switch already happening in organizations trying to promote content. Not over competition, but in tandem with.
That's really fascinating. That's a really good point too, because I have seen that actually, as you're mentioning that, the idea that, yeah, you're bringing on board a content creator who's maybe not a professional player, but they have a huge audience. And I think there is space for both. I agree. I would be curious on somebody who is a top player, their perspective on that. I would be because I'm biased in that I'm not, you know, quote esports in that I'm not a pro player. So I would love the opportunity to share in that space, right, with people who are pro players. I'm very curious if there would be any animosity or if they, you know, if pro players would feel differently on that. But I think that there is room for both, and I think that would be really cool. I would love that. I love getting perspective. That's really interesting.
The inspiration for questions like that came from talking with Menino Jardim, who just recently, like he's been a top competitor for years, but like just recently has started to pour his attention into content as well. As somebody in the content space for as long as I've been, and for you as well, and for Kevin as well, to me anyway, it was hard to understand like, well, you were a top competitor for this long and you haven't thought of content. It's right there, and it's so good, and you're so good.
That is so true. That is so funny to me. I've seen that happen so many times where I'm like, wait, this person doesn't have their own like social media all set up, or they don't have their own YouTube channel. It's crazy that just different perspectives on that. And I think anybody who is trying to go for esports, I think having your own platform and trying out content creation, even if it's not as consistently, you're not on that streamer grind that other people are on. I think it's really important for you to have. You just like diversify your content, right?
For sure. Huge. I mean, people who are top competitors, they already have their niche. They have what makes them different than anybody else's, an impressive resume of competitive history.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so, yeah. Oh, world's changing.
World's changing.
That's really,
it's an interesting
really
time.
Cool. Yeah.
Steph, I really want to thank you for joining us today. This was such an incredible chat. Talking about all of the different ways that people can get interested and get into Pokemon, into VGC, just into competitive in general. I think it's so important to have people like yourself speaking about these kind of things. It's cool.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I agree. I love the Pokemon community so much. I love creating content. I love just getting to talk about it. And I think the more we all get to talk about things, the more we open doors for more people. So I really appreciate you having me on. I could talk forever with you guys because it's just been such a fun blast.
So please look out for Pokésports Plus with StephOfAnime Part 2 and Part 3 and Part 74 coming your way soon.
It would be 10 parts.
Next time, an anime podcast.
There you go.
Favorite anime, go. Wait, no.
Okay, yes,
favorite
please,
anime.
Go ahead.
I missed it.
What favorite anime?
Favorite anime.
Favorite anime, I'll give you my top 3.
Okay.
Fullmetal Alchemist, Code Geass, and Steins Gate.
That was so quick.
She had that prepared before I had it prepared.
Most asked question. I got you.
Oh, that's fair. If anybody asked me, I'd have to get back to them next week. That's amazing. Steph, before we go, we always ask everybody this question. I play with 1 Pokemon on the field. Kevin plays with 2 Pokemon on the field. How many Pokemon do you play with on the field?
I was going to say 3 for the joke, but I'll say 2.
3 for the memes, 2 for the reels.
Perfect.
Steph, before we go, where can people find you?
You guys can find me at twitch.tv/StephOfAnime. I also have a Twitter, Instagram, and a YouTube channel you could check out.
There you go, all by the same name. Now, by the way, people, this is STEPH, not the other possible ways that you could spell that.
Yep.
Kevin, where can people find you?
Twitter and Instagram, X-Rays Ovation.
And you can find me at StillJustMike on Twitter and Instagram. You can find Pokésports wherever you find your podcasts under the name Pokésports, a competitive Pokemon podcast. You can find us on Twitter at PokésportsPod or Instagram and Patreon at Pokésports Podcast. We put out videos on YouTube every single day on youtube.com/Pokésports, or you can send us an email at PokésportsPodcast@gmail.com. I listed them all. I got it. Yeah, I never do that. Guys, again, I want to thank everyone so much for being here. Kevin, thank you for being here. Michael, thank you for being here. Steph, thank you for being here. Y'all are amazing.
Thank you.
We will talk with you next week. See you then.
Bye.
Later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.